You're freaking live, baby. Live. The live video is starting. Is it? Yeah, there it is. All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to Apocalypse Hump Day here at the b.hive. And what we do is every Wednesday, I read one of my stories that's geared towards the apocalypse. And tonight's story is called Row 137, and you will find it in my book, Midnight Snacks. Dun dun dun. It's actually the first horror book I came out with. And tonight's story is going to be pretty short for my stories. I mean, it's a short story. I might even call it an essay. What's up, essay? Anyway, yeah. So the story for tonight came about when I was outside. I was living in rural Fairmont, out on a farm, and I noticed there was these I don't know what you'd call them, like jet streams or something, like the clouds that come out of the back of jet fighters. All right, and they were in a line going from one side of the horizon all the way to the other, but I couldn't see anything that was producing them. And so I took a drive in the country, which I tend to do. And when I got to the other side of them, I could see they were like these triangle-shaped aircraft. I don't want to say they were UFOs, but I'd never seen anything like them. They were triangle-shaped, and they were like, I don't know, they were like mirrored, so that they would blend in with the sky and you couldn't see them from a certain angle. At any rate, yeah, and they went from one side of the sky to the other. They were all just lined up, and they just were stationary, and I was like, what the hell is that? And I ran into town, and I had asked a few people. I believe I was working at the newspaper at the time? Yeah, I can't remember where I was working, but I remember calling in to see if anybody had reported. No, I think I was working for the sheriff's department. And I called in and I asked if anybody had reported anything strange in the sky. And oddly enough, nobody had, but they were silent. You couldn't hear them. Like usually when you hear a jet, you can hear it going. And there was no noise, just birds and stuff like that, other noises. So anyhow, that's where this story is coming from. I also threw in, I've always been one to like really get into like conspiracy theories. Not that I believe them, but they're kind of fun to dig into. And this had something to do with the chemtrail theory. And so I kind of mixed that in with the story. It's a really super short story, so it shouldn't take me too long to get through it, unless something fails on this live broadcast, which has been known to happen this week. So at any rate, yeah, we'll move into that story. And again, if you're tuning in, thank you for showing up. Thank you guys for showing up last night. And one thing I really want to thank you for, a lot of you shared the event, tonight's event, and next week's event, and the Tunes for Tuesday. You guys have been sharing the crap out of that on your Facebook page, and that's huge for me because I get people looking at my stuff that don't know who I am or what I do or anything. So I very much appreciate that. So thank you to you guys. Hopefully I can get some swag printed up, and I can send you guys kind of a little thank you gift or whatever. So at any rate, let's get into the story, and we'll get into some other juicy stuff when I get done. Yeah, it's a short one, and you guys would probably be disappointed in the ending. But what can I say? I was very young then, and I was really just wanted to publish something. So so bear with me. I hope you guys enjoy it. Row 137. Randy loved harvest time. The late hours didn't bother him. He had grown up on this 1,000-acre farm and couldn't think of anything he'd enjoy more than harvesting something he had planted. The combine made its way around to the next 8 rows, while the radio in his cab crackled out the latest on farm markets. We interrupt your regular programming on KFMT for a special news bulletin, came the announcer's voice. This is Mary Henderson for CBS News. Reports are coming in across the nation regarding large flocks of dead birds falling from the sky, and also schools of fish turning up dead in hundreds of lakes. From New York City along the Hudson, everything from whales to other sea life have shown up by the scores along the Manhattan riverbanks, and also in New Jersey along the shore. Reports have also come in from Wisconsin, Minnesota, Montana, Arkansas, Louisiana, and California. The CDC commented that because of weather trends created by global warming, it may be causing some of the deaths. Other local authorities concur by adding there is nothing to be worried about, as this does happen occasionally but usually goes unreported. Meteorologists say, however, that there is an anomaly with atmospheric pressure currently created a haze in the air and a repugnant odor. Just then, Randy's cell phone rang. It was his wife. Hello? Honey? She sounded panicked. Can you come home? There's something wrong with the livestock. What? Livestock? Why? What's wrong with them? Well, first it was the cattle. They became restless and tried breaking through the fence. And then one collapsed, and then the rest followed. They have some sort of fungus around their mouths. Are they still alive? Yes, but they're breathing kind of funny. I called Dr. Kittleson to come out and have a look. To be honest, Randy, I'm not feeling so hot myself. I'll be there as soon as I can. Randy drove his combine to the edge of the field where he had left his truck. He noticed an ammonia-like stench in the air and looked around. The smells and the haze were normal during this time of year in the country. Dust from the harvesters, the smells from drying corn, and anhydrous ammonia from the fertilizers in the field. But because of the last news broadcast, it left him unnerved. The radio in his truck crackled and cut out from the usual station he had it on. KFMT's towers were only a mile and a half from his farm, and he could make them out from here. Now coming in, product of agriculture from Washington. Lights in the sky were effect on the pop. Then dead air. He flipped open his phone and speed dialed home. It rang 4 times, and then his wife answered. Randy? She sounded hoarse, as if she'd been shouting. Are you coming home soon? What's wrong? He asked. You sound terrible. Static, and then dead air. He closed his phone and threw it in the passenger seat and pushed down on the accelerator. Just a mile from his home, he noticed several pieces of debris in front of him. He skidded to a stop in front of them and noticed that they were deer. About 12 bodies lay across the road, trailing into the ditch and into his field. What the hell? He muttered to himself. He got out and noticed it was harder to breathe the air, as if he were in a higher altitude. The deer carcasses were covered with an orange fungus around their muzzles. Some of them were just barely alive, breathing shallowly. He looked towards his farm and could see multitudes of his livestock were lying about his dooryard. He scanned the horizon, trying to see through some of the haze. He began panicking and grabbed a couple of deer and dragged their bodies to the side of the road so he could get through. Driving up into his dooryard, his heart made a lump in his throat. Cows, chickens, goats, his 2 horses, and even his hunting dog, Alice, were lying on the ground. Some barely living, the others were dead. His wife stumbled out the front door and then fell into the front yard. He ran to her, and there was an orange tint to her nose and mouth. Her breathing was raspy and wheezing. "Dana, honey, are you okay?" he asked desperately. "Can't hardly breathe," she gasped. He picked her up and carried her to his truck and laid her in the cab. He got into the driver's side and lifted her head and laid it in his lap. "I'll take you to town, to the hospital," he tried to comfort her. On the way to town, Randy saw some of his neighbors in the ditch and more animals lying about the roads and ditches. When he got to the city limits, he stopped his truck. The entire main street was littered with corpses. There were a few bodies that were still alive, but just barely from the looks of them. Above, he heard a rumble like thunder, and he couldn't pinpoint where the noise was coming from. He returned to his truck, gasping for air. The air was thinner, and still had that hint of ammonia in it. It didn't make sense since he wasn't in high altitudes. He was on the flat plains of Minnesota. Dana was shaking as if she were cold. He felt her forehead and was almost burned by how icy her skin was. "Jesus!" he exclaimed, and put the truck into drive and went 4 blocks into town towards the hospital. The rumbling got louder, and he spotted something in the sky. Directly above him, there was what looked like a jet stream from a plane going perfectly vertical, but there was no plane. He got out of his truck again and noticed there were jet streams coming from nowhere, as far as his eye could see, from eastern horizon to western horizon. Dana began a violent fit of coughing, and he returned his attention to getting his wife to the hospital, but kept glancing up the sky. The hospital was the worst of any place he had been so far. Corpses, hog-piled upon corpses. The stench of rotting flesh hung in the air, almost overpowering the smell of ammonia in the air. Dana coughed up a rusty rope of phlegm from her mouth as he tried to lift her from the car. Her body was ice cold and stiff. It felt as if she were dead, but her body was still breathing heavily, as if struggling to hold on. "Hang on, baby," he said as he walked his way through the parking lot's gruesome labyrinth. By the time he got to the automatic doors of the emergency room, he was wheezing heavily. Something began rattling in his throat. His head began to swim in a fog as a rush of blood to the head hit him. The dead and the dying decorated the waiting room. Not all of them were patients. There were nurses, doctors, paramedics too, lying there on the floors and desks and lounge chairs. "Hello?" Randy shouted from the front desk. "Anybody? My wife is sick. I need some help." No answer. He adjusted his wife and then laid her down onto a nearby abandoned gurney. He was fighting back tears in his eyes. "It'll be okay, baby," he said, choking on his own sobs. "I'm sure they're busy. I'm going to go back into the ER and see if I can't find someone to help us." He kissed her frozen blue lips and tried to get into the ER, but the door was locked with a keypad. He went over to the nurse's station, which was divided by plexiglass. Looking around, he couldn't see anyone there, but he was determined to see for himself. He shouted to the back, but didn't receive an answer. He went over and grabbed a chair and threw it into the plexiglass, and it fell apart. He jumped over the service counter and looked around. More bodies laid about the place. Row upon row of corpses riddled with some form of orange fungus gathered about their nose and mouths. "Is there a goddamn doctor around?" he shouted hopelessly. "Hello?" He grabbed some surgical masks, fitted himself with one, and then went out the ER door. He got to Dana, and he dropped to his knees. Dana, he asked, beginning to cry. Honey, wake up. We're gonna have to try Faribault County Hospital. Honey? She was gone. He knew it as soon as he saw her face when he came back. She looked relaxed and at peace. Light crimson saliva drooled from the corner of her mouth. Don't leave me, Dana. His sobbing began to jerk his body. Dana, don't do this to me. Dana! His cries echoed through the dead hallways. The sound of helicopter blades echoing off the front parking lot pulled him from his grief. He ran out the side doors he had come in and saw the wind given off by the whirring blades around the corner. He glanced over at his truck and then looked up into the sky. He now saw where the jet streams were coming from. From western horizon to eastern he saw aircraft, triangular in shape, emitting some form of noxious cloud. The aircraft was made of some sort of reflective metal that hid them at a certain angle. There's one, said a voice behind a gas mask. He turned to see a group of people in hazmat suits carrying automatic rifles. Hey! He shouted, muffled by his surgical mask. Hey! I need help! He noticed that the bodies lying about him were decomposing at a rapid rate, turning into bubbling puddles of dark orange goo. Hey! He began walking towards them. Hey, what's going on? Take him out, said another voice. What are you? Bullets fired from several guns ripped into the air and began taking chunks from his body. Jesus! He cried out and started for his truck. More bullets sunk into his body as he ran, digging holes into the tarmac in his back. He fell and started crawling only feet from his Ford pickup. As he reached his door and pulled himself up, one last bullet found the top of his head and sprayed his scalp across his driver's side window. Blood stained his mask, and he fell. Okay, said the voice. Let's go inside and make sure the hospital is secured. Sir, said a voice from a man coming from the helicopter. Sector 5 is now clear. Delta team is heading back to base. Good. Now we can have the cleanup teams finish up this mess once we're done. And that is the end of that story. See, I told you it was pretty short. So, anyhow, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Next week is going to be the start of the zombie apocalypse. I wrote a novel a long time ago called Zechariah 14:12, Humanity's Last Stand. And it stemmed from a short story that I had written in this book, in Midnight Snacks. And I kind of, somebody had asked me if, they asked me you should write a novel about the zombie apocalypse. And I thought, well, what can you write about? Because, something escapes out of a lab, somebody gets bit, boom, 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 the world gets taken over, the end, right? Kind of like The Walking Dead. Like, I didn't like how that ended. But anyway, so I thought I'd give it a try. So I took the short story and I expanded it, and it turned into 26 chapters. So, yeah, and then I wrote a sequel to that in a short story, and I've begun to write the manuscript for a book called Jeremiah 19:9 in the beginning. And that book is going to talk about how all this started and where it spread. It's kind of a prequel to Zechariah. But also in my book, Sleepwalker, I wrote the story Homecoming. And it kind of talks about how this all started and where this virus came from. So that's what we are going to be reading next week, is Homecoming. And I'm kind of excited to go through this again. And everybody loves zombies, and I hope I can do the genre some credit. So since there are so many of these zombie stories, and we're going to go through the novel, I am probably going to be breaking it down into chapters so that we can. Sorry, Trevor. He's fully invested. Oh, Kevin. Thanks, brother. It was groovy. I have heroes flying in the hood here. I better get to bed. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for showing up, man. It's good to see you. Um, yeah, so where was I? Yes, so I'm kind of really psyched for this. I'm going to break it down into chapters. So we've got quite a ways to go with Apocalypse Hump Day. Will take us into New Year's. Yeah, take us into 2024, definitely. So please tune in for that. We'll be doing that every Wednesday at 9 o'clock Central Standard Time. Also happening next week, we got a triple treat. We're going to be doing Tunes on Tuesday. I'm going to be playing a couple Elvis songs for you guys. Yay. And Apocalypse Hump Day, we're going to be doing Homecoming. And then on Friday, it's the b.hive holiday special. Going to be way cooler than the Star Wars holiday special. And I'm going to be reading a Christmas story that I wrote called The Anti-Claus is Coming to Town. And that is also in this book. There's all kinds of treats in this. It's like the gift that keeps giving. Speaking of which, and speaking of Christmas, I got 7 books out there on Amazon. Head out there, look up Bradley Bodeker, and all the books that I have written and published are in there. So, yeah, so please check it out. Thank you, everybody, for showing up here. You're not going to hear from me until Tunes on Tuesday. So, yeah, I guess I better get practiced up. And, yeah, good to talk with you guys. And again, please, it's just a simple click of a button. Head over to my YouTube page. The links are on my b.hive page here. Click on that and just click subscribe. It's not subscribe and send Brad money, although that if you want to, I'm not going to say no. But yeah, it's just clicking and liking it. The more likes I get, the more I can do with YouTube. That's why I'm doing everything through Facebook right now, because they're not as picky as everybody else. So yeah, it'd be nice to be able to start earning some money doing this too, because this would be a great side gig, right? Anyhow, yes, so like and subscribe. Tell your friends about it. Share the events that are coming up that you get invited to. And thank you very much for coming along on my little apocalypse journey. You guys, peace out. Have a great night. And we'll see you guys in your nightmares.